In the face of a demonic tide, a desperate fervor grips humanity. The war against Hell's hordes has become a crucible, forging a throng of warriors into instruments of divine fury. Visions, both terrifying and holy, plague the minds of the faithful all over the world. Some people, touched by heaven's grace, see these visions as revelations or pronouncements from the angels themselves. These pronouncements sparked the start of the trench pilgrim processions into the battlefield. These processes are chaotic, a swirling mass of the righteous and the redeemed. Men and women, scarred by war and hardship, stand shoulder to shoulder with the God-touched. Sisters of the holy orders, marked by Christ's bleeding wounds of the stigmata, cast aside their healing vows and embrace the sword and cross. Guilt-ridden souls, yearning for atonement, see this war as their final chance for redemption. They fight with the fury of the damned, seeking to drag as many demons back to hell with them as possible. Leading these throngs are the prophets and prophetesses. They translate the cryptic pronouncements of the visions, touched by the divine, into actionable battle plans. Their pronouncements are both terrifying and exhilarating. Some whisper about hidden enemy weaknesses, others promise shortcuts across the blasted wastelands, and still others urge suicidal charges into the heart of the enemy lines. The faithful believe, regardless of the content. Their faith fuels an unparalleled zeal, an unstoppable tide of humanity crashing against the demonic hordes. Though technically unsanctioned by the Holy See, the church militant recognizes the desperate need for every weapon in this celestial war. Thus, the highest authority bestows blessings upon these pilgrim crusades, tacitly endorsing them. The battlefields are a macabre dance of faith and fury. Pilgrim processions charge across no man's land, a churning mass of humanity armed with whatever they can find. Ancient muskets cough and sputter alongside makeshift explosives and holy relics. Leading the charge are the castigators, fearsome zealots who wield whips imbued with holy power. Their task is twofold: to drive the faithful forward and punish anyone who falters, ensuring the processions maintain their divine momentum. In this clash of faith and madness, the trench pilgrim processions stand as a testament to humanity's desperate fight against the forces of hell. In front of the trench pilgrims are driven the ecclesiastic prisoners, either captured enemies of the true faith forced to make a final act of contrition, or volunteer sinners seeking redemption. Each is strapped with high explosives, which are detonated once they reach the enemy lines. They dash across the killing grounds, hoping to either miraculously survive the blast and escape, or take as many followers of Lucifer with them as they can, depending on their convictions. The effectiveness of the trench pilgrim processions is a brutal paradox. Their lack of formal training and ragtag weaponry often leads to a horrendous number of casualties. The most puissant of pilgrim processions will be accompanied by a shrine anchorite, a metal behemoth some 12 feet tall, a living altar of war almost completely immune to any damage. The interior of the anchorite is covered in spikes and barbed hooks so that the monk who controls this colossus is in a constant state of torment, rejoicing in the pain so they can suffer as their Lord once did. In combat, they wield adamantine Catherine wheels of massive proportions which they use to crush the sinners and heretics into a pulp, and then string them upon the wheel as a warning to others. The faithful's bodies litter no man's land, a testament to their suicidal charges. Yet, their sheer fervor and disregard for self-preservation can overwhelm even the most disciplined demonic legions. There are countless stories of processions empowered by visions and divine pronouncements, breaking through fortified enemy lines or holding back seemingly unstoppable hordes of chaos. The composition of these processes is as varied as the reasons for joining. Some gather around charismatic war preachers, their booming voices echoing promises of salvation and graphic descriptions of hell's torments. Others follow penitents who lead processions of self-flagellation, their bodies bearing the marks of their devotion in a gruesome display of piety. The bulk of the pilgrims are men and women with little military training, but when they don the iron capyrate of a trench pilgrim, they can face even a demon from the deepest bulges of hell unflinchingly. Nor is death necessarily an end to their mission. Sometimes the seventh Metachrist will deem a fallen pilgrim worthy and bring them back as martyr penitents, warriors halfway between heaven and earth, able to fight once more and feel no pain from a bullet or a bayonet thrust. Rarer and more dangerous are the stigmatic nuns, holy sisters who manifest wounds to match those of the third Metachrist whom the nuns venerate. They excel in close quarters combat, for each bleeding wound that they suffer makes them stronger, not weaker, as their devotion to suffering as their Lord once did gives them strength and endurance not found on mere common mortals. Armed with swords and pistols, they cross the no man's land heedless of any danger, praying to sustain wounds for the Redeemer, which in turn will transform them into the very vengeance of the Lord. The most unsettling processes, however, are those led by the flagellants. These fanatics, driven to the edge by visions of their own damnation, have become instruments of holy terror. They wield barbed chains and spiked flails, seeking not just to slay the demonic, but to inflict maximum suffering in the name of their twisted faith. Their screams, a horrifying blend of religious ecstasy and unhinged violence, send shivers down the spines of even the most hardened veterans. Despite the chaos and fanaticism, a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose binds the processions. They share stories of fallen comrades, sing hymns of faith during the long marches, and offer solace to the dying. In the face of annihilation, they find a strange kind of community, a fellowship forged in the fires of war and fueled by a desperate hope for salvation. The trench pilgrim processions are a bloody and complex legacy. They are both a symbol of humanity's faith and a chilling reminder of the destructive power of fanaticism. One thing is certain: their presence on the battlefield ensures that the war against hell will be a brutal and unrelenting struggle, regardless of whether they prove to be humanity's salvation or its doom. The impact of the trench pilgrim processions extends far beyond the immediate battles. Their presence has become a potent symbol in the war effort, a double-edged sword for the church. On one hand, the processions inspire awe and fervor among the populace. Tales of their suicidal bravery and divinely guided victories bolster the morale of regular troops and civilians alike. Propaganda posters depict them as champions of humanity, their ragged forms standing defiant against the backdrop of demonic hordes. There is a bewildering number and variety of trench pilgrim processions. The path of pious revenge swears in the name of St. Olga and uses flamethrowers, burning grenades, and incendiary ammunition to assail the heretics. The pilgrims of the Iron Path follow St. Rita of Cassia and go to battle with hammers, mauls, maces, and cudgels, and hammer nails into their heads in the memory of the saint they venerate. The Theban Legion of Rome carries the heads of the heretics upon their standards in the memory of their patron, Saint Maurice. The fight with swords and other blades, competing with each other for the number of heretic heads they amass. Trench pilgrims of the Procession of the Sacred Affliction are known for their zeal for close quarters combat, their armor decorated with icons and shields adorned with the depictions of the saints, which despite appearances can withstand machine gun bullets, and the millstones they carry in order to tie them around the necks of sinners before they suffocate them in the mud and blood of the no man's land. However, the church also grapples with the unpredictable and often brutal nature of the processions. The collateral damage they inflict, both on themselves and the enemy, raises troubling questions. Whispers of atrocities committed by flagellants or processes led by false prophets spread like wildfire. The church struggles to maintain control over this chaotic movement, fearing it could spiral into full-blown religious extremism. This tension has led to the rise of the war prophets as a fixed sort of commanding officer. They are tasked with navigating this precarious situation. These war prophets are elite warriors, steeped in theology and combat tactics. They embed themselves in processions, acting as advisors and intermediaries between the fervent faithful and the church's more strategic needs. They strive to guide the processions towards objectives that align with the larger war effort while tempering their more destructive tendencies. The relationship between prophets and processions is a complex one. Prophets respect the raw faith and bravery of the pilgrims, but they remain wary of the fanaticism that can easily twist such devotion. The pilgrims in turn revere the prophets as paragons of faith and martial prowess. Despite the friction, this uneasy alliance has proven vital. The prophets provide much-needed leadership and discipline, while the processions offer a surge of raw manpower and faith, a potent combination in the fight against hell's relentless onslaught. The ripples of the trench pilgrim processions extend beyond battlefields and propaganda. Their presence has become a social and economic phenomenon, shaping life far from the front lines. The constant need for unconventional weaponry fuels a thriving black market. Here, scavengers and opportunists trade captured demonic artifacts, repurposed industrial tools, and blessed relics of questionable origin. This trade attracts a dark undercurrent, flagellant splinter groups. Obsessed with inflicting maximum suffering, they seek out the most barbaric tools, blurring the lines between holy instruments and instruments of torture. The processions offer a path to redemption for the most desperate and guilt-ridden. Charismatic figures exploit this vulnerability to form redemption cults. These cults prey on the fear of damnation, promising absolution through extreme acts of self-sacrifice or brutal violence against perceived sinners. The church struggles to contain these cults, fearing they will further fragment the already chaotic movement. The war creates a generation that is orphaned by the conflict. Many of these children find a grim sanctuary within the processions. They become runners, scouts, and even frontline fighters, their innocence forever lost in the crucible of war. The church grapples with this ethical dilemma, torn between utilizing their raw courage and protecting them from the horrors they witness. Bards and storytellers travel across war-torn landscapes, weaving tales of the trench pilgrim processions into ballads and legends. These stories serve a dual purpose. Some glorify the processions, immortalizing their bravery and faith. Others serve as cautionary tales, highlighting the dangers of unchecked fanaticism and the devastating cost of war. The trench pilgrim processions are a force that reshapes not just the war effort, but the very fabric of society. They are a testament to the human capacity for both faith and terrifying barbarity. Their impact is undeniable, regardless of whether they become a symbol of hope or a harbinger of doom. Theirs is a legacy etched in blood, faith, and the desperate struggle for survival in a world teetering on the brink of damnation.